most people back then, when they did graffiti, it wasn't very comfortable for them at home. Most people that got into it and they were escaping something and found almost like a brotherhood. You had to steal everything. We didn't have money, so you'd steal a camera. Most of my friends that I knew growing up were robbing houses, and I ended up first in boys' homes, and then I eventually progressed to Pentridge, learned from it, and taken something away from jail and become a better person.
Young soldier of God, steady march.
Yo, it's your boy Dave here, and this is the Felon Show. Hope all is going well out there. God bless you all. How about you introduce yourself, my bro, and where you're from?
Hello, good people out there. My name's Jez, but I go under the alias of Armed, and I'm in a graffiti crew called KSA, which originated on the streets of Dandenong in 1988.
1988, man, far out. Bro, welcome to the show, man. It's good to have you on. It's good to have you back on, actually.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. I must have done something right if you got me back again.
Nah, it's all love, bro. It's all love. Nah, well, so this man right here, like he just said, so he goes by the name of Armed. So that's his graffiti alias. So he's actually part of the KSA crew, which is basically a part of Melbourne history here over there. It's about, a part of history of Melbourne, you know what I mean? The whole graffiti scene, hip hop, you know what I mean? This man here is actually one of the first guys that I got on the show. So I actually reached out to this guy a while ago when the Felon Show was first starting. I reached out to this guy to jump on because, like I said, these guys are a part of Melbourne history. And I remember when I first moved to Melbourne as a teenager, seeing in the southeastern suburbs, you just see KSA and Armed and the rest of them. You see them everywhere. You haven't caught the train in the southeast if you haven't seen one of the KSA pieces. They're absolutely up everywhere. And like you said, some of them are going back to the 80s. When you see the train yards in Dandenong, there's graffiti there from back in the 80s. So definitely a part of history. Part of Felon Show history as well. This man actually painted that canvas at the back there. So that was all thanks to this guy right here. It's been up on my wall ever since. So, brother, it's good to have you back on the show, man.
Good to be back, bro. Thanks a lot, man.
Look, man, to start us off, man, so you just said, man, so KSA started there in Dandenong. So is that where you're from, brother, originally?
That's correct. I was born in Dandenong Hospital. Even my kids were born in Dandenong Hospital. My brothers, sisters, most of my friends were all born in Dandenong Hospital. And then we moved for a little bit up until about 5 years old, only to come back to Dufton.
Bro, can you paint a picture, man, of what Duffy was like back then?
In the early 70s, when I was born in the early 70s, and in the early 70s, there was a lot of Sharpies. That's what I remember. Kids were riding BMXs. We all had the little tails, the little rat tails at the back of our head. All had the short hair, and it was pretty rough. They were pretty rough. It was all blue collar working class. They got a lot of immigrants in the 50s to set up to work in the industries in the area, such as Holt General Motors, International Harvester. I think there was the ICE. It was called ICU. I think they're the people that made the insulation, along with a lot of other businesses. So it was a lot of working class. It was a lot of immigrants, multicultural.
This guy is one of the original members of the KSA crew. So, bro, can you explain what that is, man, for people that wouldn't know? Or
okay, what happened around where we were in Dandenong and in most suburbs, especially outer suburbs of Melbourne? We had this explosion of hip hop culture in the form of breakdancing. Breakdancing had taken over. You couldn't go to any corners, any shops, milk bars, supermarkets, shopping centres without seeing people breakdancing. It just took over. It was pretty incredible to see how fast it become so popular. And obviously, it come from New York. So we had this hip hop culture, and then we had this breakdance. We had breakdancing as one of the elements of hip hop, and from that graffiti spurred. And there was always graffiti around Melbourne, but it was more political, or it was a couple of mates hanging out together. There was there was a couple of people from Dandenong, and they used to write Jacko and Joffa. In the inner city, it was Tubby and Raffles, and that was just basic graffiti. But then after that, it took on an art form, and it started to develop and develop pretty quickly, the same way breakdancing had, and it eventually started hitting the trains. When I got into it, I was always into graffiti, but I really got into it in about '88 when the culture had exploded, and I started hitting up trains in the Dandenong yards with a bunch of other people from my area, and also meeting other people in the yards. And from then, I started hitting trains and insides of trains, outsides of trains, and just putting everything. I lived it day to day, which was in the daytime you would try to find places to steal your ink and your markers. You wouldn't have money, so you'd also have to steal your paint. You'd do a sketch in the day, and then you would find somewhere to paint a safe yard or a safe wall to paint at night. And that's where that's where it all started for me.
All right, man. So, I mean, bro, can you paint a picture of the graffiti world, man? So, like, I know a little bit, you know what I mean, through you and that as well. So I know that, well, I mean, let's just say for a second that, like, look, we'll put graffiti not in the crime section. So we'll just say that graffiti is like art, and it is since way back. But was graffiti and crime something that sort of, and drugs sort of something that went, would you say, like, hand in hand? Because I know, you know, from the last time you've known, you know, a lot of people who have died over the years, a lot from heroin and things like that. So can you paint a picture of what the graffiti world was actually like? Like, was the KSA graffiti crew, but also was there another element to it, sort of a gangster crime element to it? Or
There was, look, most of us had come from, if most people that, not nowadays, but most people back then when they did graffiti, it wasn't very comfortable for them at home. By the time I was about 17, I'd spent considerable amount of time on the streets, from about 15 years of age onwards, just being a little brat, not getting along with my parents, and my parents, having enough. So there was times of my life where I was living in bushland or living at stations. So most people that got into it and they were escaping something and found almost like a brotherhood of mischievous kids like them that were, most of us were troublemakers, clowns at school, and we gravitated towards graffiti for that reason. Along with one thing that graffiti in the old days, in the early stages, in the 80s and early 90s, was you had to steal everything. We didn't have money, so you'd steal a camera. You wanted to take photos. You wanted records for hip hop to listen to. You stole all your records. Your clothes, you had no money for that. You wanted to look fresh, so you stole your clothes too. Then you stole your paint. So you become a criminal. And not only that, you lived in Dandenong. Well, we did. We lived in Dandenong, Menzies Avenue area, Danny North area. All I knew was pretty much criminals. There was no doctors and lawyers, man, So you were kind of going to go one way, most of my friends that I knew growing up were robbing houses and smoking dope and things like this. And then later on, by the time the 90s had started, heroin was everywhere. So, there was a big the crime and the graffiti culture kind of went hand in hand.
I mean, so what was your introduction into graffiti?
My first introduction to graffiti was breakdancing. Breakdancing, the crews around Waverley Gardens, Browns Road, the hip hop movies. You remember breakdance, Beat Street, things like that. Then later on, I would catch trains to the city and I would see the first stages of graffiti getting done along the train lines. And then, that was my first introduction. And then I said, I want a piece of this. And I met people at my high school, at Lyndale High School in North Dandenong, and there was graffiti writers there. And, the stupid thing we did, though, we went and graffitied the whole school with our names. So it didn't take long for the teacher to find out who we were. The first true graffiti crews that I seen from Dandenong were a crew called FMC. They would have to be the first full graffiti crew ever to come from the Dandenong area. Most of them come from Endeavour Hill. So I used to see some early pieces of theirs, but unbeknown to me who did them. And later on in life, I would find out they were members of the FMC crew around Menzies Avenue. I'd see little pieces through Dandenong and tags from Dyer and Esky and Jags. And so they were probably the first. They're the first crew. They're definitely the first. They were pretty organised. They had a big crew, and they were doing trains from I think 86, 87, and doing a lot of walls. They did a lot of damage, and they were pretty fresh crew, and they're still going strong to this day. FMC crew. So FMC crew had a big influence on KSA in the early days. Some of the people we met were in FMC crew, and the first guy to take me to a yard was a guy in the FMC crew, Fresh Mess crew, and his name was Ink. It was me, Ink, and another guy, Luck, who was in KSA. And I think the second piece I ever did on train, I met a whole lot of other people from the FMC crew. So it's pretty much FMC crew started, first graffiti crew, then KSA.
Oh, okay. So yeah, man, been around for a long time, all right. I mean, bro, even when I was in prison in Melbourne, like you see FMC in there, you see KSA, so it is sort of a testament to the hand-in-hand sort of graffiti and the crime culture and things like that. Like, I'm assuming you knew a lot of people who were going in and out and...
Yeah, unfortunately, at one stage of in the early 90s, the crime took the driver's seat, and not for everyone, but the crime had overtaken the graffiti. Everyone was still b-boys. Everyone was still into the hip hop culture, the music, occasionally graffitiing, but a lot of people had turned to drugs, and crime had taken over. It was a pretty tough time because what happened was, as I said, there was a lot of crews. There was, as I mentioned, there was FMC, there was KSA. This is all before 1990, okay? So everyone's got established graffiti crews by this stage. So there's FMC, there's KSA, there's JFK, there's DSA. Look, I'm missing out on other crews. There's other crews as well. But we all went under a banner called 3174. By this stage, we're all hanging around a place called the Noble Park Pinball Parlour, Noble Park Pinnies, on, I think, Douglas Street. And we were all hanging around with each other and having big street fights, I mean really big street fights, with another crew, which are from Dandenong, called MC3. And I mean, we'd fight in the Dandenong Park on the Princess Highway, and there would be 150, 200 people. We'd always go there to have a one-on-one, but they'd end up in big brawls, So we were all under the banner of 3174, and that was pretty good. That was pretty brotherly initially at the start, but somewhere along the line, heroin got brought into the area. And, it goes without saying that heroin is a pretty addictive drug. So you've got young kids from bad homes on the street, staying out late at night, no real rules at home. And now here's heroin. Yeah, I want to try the heroin. Kids are going, no, I want to try this heroin. So they're trying the heroin, and now they're addicts. Now you've got a bunch of people that used to be addicted to graffiti, addicted to drugs. And before we knew it, kids were dropping like flies. And these were kids, man. So you had a lot of kids 16 to 18 that were trying heroin, when they should have been still in school. And that was a game changer. That changed a lot, where people were brotherly. Now they were looking for their their way to make money, and they would get money any way they could, you know. So you had heroin, and then of course when people are desperate for heroin, people do crime. People go to jail. So eventually there was more probably members inside of jail than there were outside in free in society. So it was a pretty dark time, to tell you the truth.
How did the well, I mean, when you first got into graffiti, I mean, how were you, man? Like, what sort of person were you, man? Were you sort of obviously looking back, you can see sort of the good times and the bad, obviously. But I mean, like, what sort of person were you at this point?
I've always been adventurous. Even to this day, I'm adventurous. And to give you an example of adventure, I love graffiti. But on the weekend, I took a kayak out fishing for snapper out in Port Phillip Bay. So I've always been adventurous. I like going to the bush and finding a waterfall, and so I looked at almost doing graffiti as one big adventure. It was just crazy, man. Getting to the yard, doing your piece, getting chased from the cops. With graffiti now, I'll give you an example, man. Graffiti's being sponsored by the Victorian government. I don't want to being sponsored by the Victorian government, bro. This is how bad it's got. It's become, and I'm all for it becoming popular and having a place in society. I'm happy for that, and people making money. But I'm traditionalist. It doesn't seem to be. You can't see a tag or a throw up or any graffiti on a train ever. Where I grew up, trains were covered. You'd see all your friends' names. You're like, "There's my friend's name. Oh, he's just done this," and watch all the beautiful artwork, the pieces on the carriages. There's none of that. The nostalgia's gone, like it has in most parts of the world. So it's a little bit different now. Now it's more in your face. You can, a lot of walls around Paran in the inner city, they're all legal. You can do graffiti, not get into trouble. People accept it a bit more, so that's a good thing. But as far as traditional graffiti, that's almost stopped. There is a few kids still doing it. Don't worry. There's still some young cats out there, man, who are getting loose. But there's not as many. It's not as much. You really have to. Yeah, the only way you get a chance to see this is on social media, because as soon as it's got put up, it's got buffed out. It's got wiped off the carriage by the security at the yard.
Well, who were some of the original members, man, of KSA?
So the original members were me and a guy called Luck. Then we went on a bit of a recruiting. We started recruiting some local guys. We had a guy named Jaffa, Cancer. This is what their graffiti names were. So Jaffa, Cancer, Action, Cameo. Later after that, we had Aqua. There's so many. Aqua, Pistol, Impact. Look, there's been a lot of people, man. There's been a lot of people in the crew, but by the 90s, early 90s, pretty much FMC, the Next Generation, and KSA had amalgamated into one. So we were both we were two crews, but we were all hanging, doing our thing together. So we had a pretty big posse. There was a few of us. It's been a tough ride. I mean, our crew, I've got 4 people that have died in my crew. Some of them pretty tragically. Other crews that around the area that I've mentioned, a lot of people died, all different ways, from suicide to shootings to heroin overdoses. Where at one stage I was just numb to it all. My best friend was dying. I'm like, yeah, it's expected. I talked to my, without feeling sorry for myself, but you're meant to grow up with your friends, your friends you grow up with. I don't have many of my friends that I grew up with,
Yeah.
A lot of them died too early. They never got a chance to see the world and see what they could bring to bring to society, how they could participate in society. They all died. So that's just the way it is, man.
Well, so I mean, so how did life sort of progress for you, man? Like going through your teenage years and then into early adulthood. How did life sort of progress for you?
Well, as I mentioned before, in the early days, well, when I grew up with the graffiti and doing the trains and the crime, how they went hand in hand, I ended up first in boys' homes. I don't know what they call them now. I was in Tirana, and it was a bit rough in there. You copped it. They like giving you. I've heard there marshmallows in there, the screws now, but it used to be a pretty tough place. And so I grew up in there, and the screws were pretty hard. That's what I mean. The marshmallows. The screws now they're a little bit softer, but they used to have this. They used to rough you up a bit. So I went through the boys' homes, and then I eventually progressed to Pentridge. And spent time in Pentridge in a lot of the divisions, a lot of the other prisons, and until about the early mid-90s, and then I'd had enough, bro. But instead of getting more affiliated with the crime, I was more focused on the graffiti and still continue to do graffiti. So I always went, I would be out of jail 3 days. Man, let's go. Let's try to do the yard. Let's try to do a piece. And I've always done it. And even to this day, I still do graph.
So like, so you're one of the lucky ones pretty much, wasn't it? You know what I mean? A lot of the guys that you knew just continued, isn't it? And just continued in the crime. Like, how was it for you going into prison, man?
Well, I don't know if you ever went to Russell Street cells. I think they closed mid-90s or something. But the Russell Street cells, they just leave you in this underground yard where you just walked around in a circle. And you were allowed to smoke cigarettes. So you'd sit there and make a big wick. Your only pleasure was having this wick on a light and having a cigarette if you were lucky enough. And I walked into there in remand after Tirana, after Parkville, and with a bunch of grown men, some of the most dangerous men in Melbourne, and I'm 17, 18. And, it was pretty intimidating, man, for me. It's all new to me, man. I thought life was a big joke, but this straightened me out pretty quickly. And I was lucky enough, I met some good people straight off the bat. And from then on, man, you know what jail's like, bro? Jail's not fucking easy. So I did jail. I missed my friends. I missed my family. I didn't have a girlfriend. I missed out on all that stuff. And then, it's very hard. It takes you years after that to readjust. So I missed out on a lot of life. But, it is what it is. You look forward and you try to, if you're a smart person, you try to turn your life around. And there's a lot of smart people out there that have been to jail. They made the mistakes, but instead of making that continuous mistake, they've learned from it and taken something away from jail and become a better person. And I like to think that maybe I'm a better person now. I know right from wrong.
Yeah. No, you've been able to make a career out of it. You know what I mean? So that's just such a beautiful thing to be able to see that transition. So where did life sort of go for you, like from there and sort of your last prison sentence and then?
So after that, look, I still hit trains hard, but that was not what was putting me in prison. It was more violence, anger issues, other drug-related crime, theft, burglary. I was in remand for armed robbery for a long time. So the graffiti was the least of my problems. So when I got out, I got rid of all that other stuff to the left, focused on graffiti and work and other like-minded people. There was a lot of people. There was other people that wanted to work, save for a house, perhaps. It wasn't long after then that they ended up buying a house, man, in Dandenong. So I put my head in, but I still did my graffiti. And I just focused more on graffiti, work, fitness, health. Because when you go to prison, I used to read a lot about health, fitness, and so you're always going to the gym and things like that. So when I got out, I started doing the same, and it was very hard because in order to start afresh, you have to give up a lot of people, a lot of friends, You can't be hanging around people that are still taking smack, and you can't be hanging around people that are, that are doing these risky rorts. So I just had to kind of, and you cop a little bit of slack for it. But you got to do what you got to do, and I started hanging around the mates. Some of the mates before, they were doing good, so I just went back to them, and that's what happened, man. I was no angel, bro, but compared to what I was, I snapped out of it.
Yeah, definitely one of the hardest parts of that journey, isn't it? Sort of yeah, sort of moving on from the boys and sort of and you do cop slack for it and things like that, but it's essential. It's just one of those things that and it tests your commitment to wanting to change, and sort of you just got to take that time for yourself and like you said, put yourself around different environments and things like that. So like what are you doing with yourself now?
With myself now, I'm still doing graffiti. I I love my fishing. I love my outdoor life. I work and I try and I try and just not to be I just try to take a bit more care of myself. I mean, after the pandemic, as you know, that's that's woken me up to a few things. Um, I'll tell you the truth. Being in prison, one thing that it does, it gives you, it makes you rebel against the system, bro. So now with myself, I think I've been made more aware of the ills of society, and I try and focus on my own journey, bro. So I've got a journey. I've got my family, and I'm traveling down that road, and I'm pretty focused with it. So that's basically what I do. I'm pretty focused now, and I just do things for me, what I want to do. So I spend a lot of time in nature. I travel a lot. I do my graffiti. I spend as much time as I can with my kids. Two of my kids have grown up a lot, and I work and I live pretty much a normal life. I collect antiques and art, and that's about it, bro. And I'm pretty content and happy. I've probably never been more content. In life, I'm in a good place.
Man, that's beautiful to hear, brother. I swear, especially, because like, man, I'll be straight up, man. I look up to you, man. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I first came across your Instagram page, I was just like, oh man, this is that dude. You know what I mean? This is one of those KSA boys, because I did come across a few in prison, you know what I mean? And like FMC boys and that, and it was always love straight away. I'd always show them love, you know what I mean? Because that was like the Southeast boys, you know what I mean? Like, so I always showed love. So when I come across your page, a few years ago now, and I just saw all your old school pieces, I was just like, man, check this guy out, And again, so for people that to know, like this guy was one of my first guests. Like when I first started, and I didn't even have less than 100 people listening, probably. You know what I mean? Like this guy was one of the first guys that I wanted on because I just wanted to hear about that history. That history that a lot of people are either too drugged out or locked up or are dead that can't even tell that history, especially of around Dandenong. There's not many people that can actually tell that history that actually grew up there and were actually there. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like yourself, David. I mean, you've fought your inner demons, and you've somehow come out the other side. And in one way, bro, it's a miracle, because people like me and you, we ain't meant to come through the other side. We have the odds against us. But when you put all your chips down and you beat the odds, you really should take advantage of that, because you start to realize what's important in life. And you start to realize that, for the people that watch this show, and I mean, I watch your show, man, and there's been some very heartbreaking stories, but it's evidence and proof for those people who are out there fighting now that you can come through the other side. It does take patience. It is hard. It's not easy, but there's light at the end of that tunnel. And our fight is not against each other and not against our fellow man. It's about wicked men in high places. Where I grew up, man, we had everything from child molesters to, you know, grown men that like punching kids in the face. You know, as I said, there was the heroin. You know, and then and then at one stage you had your friends. You know, you're trying to deal with, and you know, and it wasn't easy for us. But you know, I'm 51 years of age now, and all that it's a memory, and so people need to know that you can get through this. You can do it. It just takes patience and it takes a lot of willpower. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a good life if you want to make the most of it.
Yeah, 100%, my brother. I mean, man, me and you are just two peas, my man. I mean, you see me at the start of the show and sort of the journey, and you know, we've both had that same journey, like you said, you know, during the pandemic and things. You know, a lot of people woke up during that time to the ills of society and how it's almost a game that's being played, you know, by and like you just said, you know, it's we can't be fighting each other, you know, we can't be fighting each other. That's what the show is all about.
No,
Basically the Felon Show in a nutshell is trying to get people together and to realize that, hey, this system, the way things are, it's all by design. You know, it's all been designed by people, like you said, in high places, so that they can stay in those high places, you know, divide and conquer, this and that, you know. So that's why this show is all about getting people to realize that, you know, there's a greater enemy and it's not each other. You know what I mean? Forget about race, forget about bloody this and that, you know, forget about all of that stuff. You know what I mean? People need to come together, you know, and that's what they fear, is people coming together. I mean, in the Bible it says spiritual wickedness in high places, you know, so not far off what you said, brother.
I think it's Ephesians 16.1
Yeah, brother, you know it.
uh, is the chapter. It's under Ephesians.
Yeah, it is, brother.
You know,
Yeah.
what we need to realise is iron sharpens iron, and hanging around and having friends that are like-minded. I mean, me and my friends, we're all on the same level, man. We all realise what we have to do. We all realise it's a chess game, man. Like you said, it's a big game, but you have to be one step ahead in a sense, to a degree, man. And you have to let go of your ego. When you see your friend doing well, you need to pat them on the back and you go, "Well done." Not ask your, not say, "Why haven't I got that?" But pat your friend on the back and say, "Well done," and get inspiration from it. And that's one thing when I was younger. When I was younger, trying to come up, there was no one. There was no real heroes. There was no one to look up to. There was no one to go, "I want to aspire to be like that," because everyone was man. So the kids out there, everybody, if you've got children, they need role models. They don't need you in prison, man. They don't need you fucking taking drugs. They don't need you. They need you. They need you there, because otherwise the cycle continues as well. You know, and you see families, man. It's just their dad was doing some. Now the kids are doing some. Now they've got kids, and their kids are watching their dads do things. So we all got to do the right thing now, man. We all got a bigger fight at hand, man. So
Yeah, 100%. Well then, I mean, that's why we're just adding our voices to this fight, and it's definitely why I got you back on. And it's definitely no coincidence, man, that you were one of my first guests on here. You know, definitely, it's all there's a divine plan, you know, and we're all a part of it. I mean, bro, like, look, I'll be straight up, man. Like, look, you know, I don't sort of shy away from my beliefs, but I put it out there as well that, man, I ain't really no religious bloke. You know what I mean? I view religion like the next man. It's just another control mechanism. You know what I mean? The church is just corrupt as the rest of them. You know what I mean? And but you know, just to be a man of God, you ain't got to be going to church all of the time and this and that. You know what I mean?
not
It's
at all,
just,
bro.
you
We,
know,
we don't need we don't need mediators between us and God, man.
yeah, exactly,
We,
exactly.
we can speak to God by being just good, honest people. And I mean, it's within all of us to be a good human being. And every time we've done something wrong, or after the fact, we know that it was wrong. you know, we know that what we did was wrong. So, you know, but sometimes it takes a long time to realize, you know, and to straighten your life out, because a lot of the times when you're younger, and like when I was a graffiti, they were like what I thought was my family. They were people for the first time that had accepted me, you know. So you want to be accepted in life, and sometimes, you know, if you're in a certain area, the people that accept you are criminals, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. That shit happens, bro. You know, but you know, only a fool keeps repeating what he does, and I mean, and that's also that's what's so cool about watching your show, Dave. Is when you're watching your show, you see all these people and you see what they've been through, and they've been through heavy shit, man. Like, you got heavy dudes on your show, bro. You know? And to see those people and to know, look at what they're doing now. Look, look at it. Look at what they've done, and nothing compared to what I've done. I mean, what I've done is nothing compared to them. And to see them come through the other side, and now they're doing well, it's a miracle, man. There's not many people. There's not many. There's no. I don't think there's no other shows that you can watch where you can actually see that. You brought that to the forefront, and at the start of its infancy, when you had me on, you didn't know where it was going to go, but look, you've created this monster now, mate. You know.
Yeah, brother. Yep. I mean, all glory to God, bro. You know, but I definitely didn't see where this was gonna be heading, man. And bro, I mean, bro, that episode that we did though, it done well. You know what I mean? It done real well for that time. I think it was the highest viewer at that point. So bro, look, man, we're coming to the end here, and man, I've so appreciated you taking the time out of your busy schedule to jump back on again, man. You need to get over here to New Zealand, man, because you know I can see us, man, would get along like a house on fire, brother. But
That day
again,
might come, bro.
yeah, that day will come, my bro. But look, man, until then, it's been a pleasure. Man, you know how it is, mate. Nothing but love and respect from this end. And I'm wishing you all of the best, man. Send the family my love in that. And
Peace and love, David. Thank you for everything, bro. Thanks for having me. Part two.
uh
Get your diary out. Book in part three.
yeah, 100%, bro. We'll do that one in person, my bro. We'll do that one in person.
Yeah, that's it, man. I like that. Yeah. Well, thank you, David. Thanks for everything you've done, man. It's been a pleasure, bro.
All right,
And
thanks, brother.
I'm honored for you to accept me back on again. Thanks a lot, Dave.
All love, my bro. All right, God bless, my brother, and we'll talk soon.
Peace, brother.